Well, hey, we're going to talk a little bit about digital maturity, especially in B2B and IT. I use a lot of satire and humor in my presentations, kind of to mask the pain, actually. And so, feel free to laugh along. Take pictures of some of the slides if you want. I can send these to you as well. A lot of people have used these slides in other presentations that I've done because it helps convey the message inside their companies. All right? First of all, I'm taking a little bit of inspiration from Brennan at PCNA about the why. So I'm here for two reasons. Number one, to help you all solve complex business problems with technology. Number two, to pay for my kids' Rawlings gear. So I started out my career at RSM in consulting, doing infrastructure stuff, firewalls, switches, routers, VMware, lower level OSI model kinds of things, connecting bits and bytes, routers and switches. Worked with companies like John Deere, Hy-Vee, Wounded Warrior Project, AMI McDonald in manufacturing, etc. I spent about 8 years there. As time went on, I decided not to sell my soul to go into partnership and went to Crescent Electric Supply Company. Is anyone familiar with Crescent here? Tom, yes. Very large distributor in the US, 1.5 billion, where I was the VP of IT. So whether that was responsible for coffee makers, clocks, wireless in the warehouse, servers, data centers, e-commerce, etc., I had full responsibility of that at a very irresponsible young age. Okay? But I was blessed with that responsibility, and we did great things there. So I spent about 5 years there, and then decided to go into the world of the dark world of professional services again at Luminos Labs. So I've been at Luminos for about 2.5 years now, working with companies like United Electric, Emser Tile, Thor Labs, and Chef's Warehouse, a public company, for example. So the whole time I've been working in this tech space, I've kind of found myself with two common denominators. Number one, high complexity projects. Number two, high visibility projects. And what's more visible than e-commerce and digital, right? Shows the good and bad of companies. So that's a little bit about me. My two boys, Odin and Ezra, they play about every sport you could imagine, and I feel like I'm a chauffeur half my life, driving them around everywhere. And if you were curious, if you're on your phone looking at the last bullet point there, has anosmia of what that is, it means I cannot smell, all right? Gift and a curse, gift and a curse. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about how we view e-commerce in the IT space and also in the marketing space, and what I refer to as the digital death spiral. Companies that tend to launch e-commerce sites and then do nothing after the fact, okay? So we're going to talk about what it looks like to be sustainable with business value and how to get out of this loop that I'll mention. This is one of those slides that I've seen people take pictures of. So at one point in time in my life, I was told by the CEO to quote unquote fix the website. And I was like, Scott, what does that mean? Fix the colors? Is it down? Fix the product data? Fix the pricing? What do you mean? Later on, I learned that really it was scorch earth. Fix everything, okay? So what I see in my world, and maybe in your day-to-day life, is companies that do digital or commerce projects around this circle, where somebody makes up a magical revenue goal that we need to make, and then you start going through it, and you have like this fake ROI that some vendor probably came up with. The budget gets approved, you do it, the technology side works, but it doesn't work for the business. Is anyone here in this circle, and where are you at on the clock? Feel free, sharing's caring. What I've seen at other organizations, people that take pictures of this, they take pictures of this and take this back to their business stakeholders and go, we're at 5 o'clock on this thing. We need to get out, right? What this turns into is a perpetual cycle of projects that really is, you get the project completed, you wonder why we even did it in the first place, and then you go down and do another one, go down, do another one. It never feels like you're in a kind of business value upscale motion. You're not hitting higher highs. You're barely hitting above the line half the time. You're doing things, but you're wondering why you're doing them for the right reasons, okay? This is very, very common, especially in B2B organizations that are not digitally born. Most of you are that, for example. I'm a Michigan Wolverine fan, living in Iowa, if you can't tell. Something that I found and observed as well, working in the infrastructure space, is way different than working in the software development and website space. But one pattern I've noticed is that it seems like organizations like to look at this as if website planning and development, you know, the game planning, running through the tunnel, getting out there, getting ready for the game. You're doing UAT, and then suddenly you do a website launch and you go live. Does anyone know the fundamental problem with this whole pattern though? Anyone want to guess? The game hasn't even started, right? You're out there on the field, and a lot of companies realize that this launching a new website, that's part one of the hard work. Part two is actually playing the game and doing it from there, right? So these are patterns that we notice, especially in digital commerce or digital transformations. Circular logic, no intentional strategy, we're just doing things ad hoc. And last but not least, you know, completion of a project we think of as the end game. Really, it's the start of the game, okay, especially in this space. Our goals today, you know, this is not a TED Talk, no revelations here, but we're just gonna build awareness and figure out how we might be able to get out of these cycles that you may be feeling on a regular day-to-day basis. I have small children. I use simple metaphors and analogies a lot. So there are 5 major building blocks to doing this successfully. They're applicable in all of your businesses, guarantee that to a certain degree. We're gonna talk about 3 of them today because we don't really have time for 5. Okay, but we're gonna talk about 3 fundamental building blocks to being successful long-term in digital commerce. First one, the green one, is the accountability framework. Really what this means, pragmatically, is how decisions are made in your organization and who's allowed to make them. This is not really something that you have on a piece of paper. You can make a RACI diagram. Anyone familiar with RACI diagrams? Roles and responsibilities, accountable, responsible, informed, you know, consulted. That's an important thing to probably have, but an accountability framework is something that you do on a regular day-to-day basis in all of your regular lives. Very important. Why it matters, I'll show you a few examples, but accountability helps break up silos in your organization. Many of you are probably in IT, some of you in marketing, some of you in maybe operations or sales, and somehow you've been given the responsibility of digital commerce. But you have to build a lot of bridges throughout the organization, don't you? An accountability framework helps break up those silos. And especially when everyone knows their role, things get a lot easier versus who does what and when. If you don't have an accountability framework, you might end up with running into one of these animals personified, like the highest paid person makes the decisions. Brennan, are you here for BCNA? Hi, Brennan. So you mentioned yesterday something very important. You talked about having a yearly budget where you get to spend money on doing things. You then proactively present to the executive team things that you would like to do that impact the business. Notice how he presented the things that he and the team would like to do to the business versus the executive stakeholders demanding something and saying, do this, do this, do this. Void of Brennan not doing what he does, they would do that. Guaranteed. Now, Brennan, people may still do that. You may still get a lot of people saying, do this, do this, do this. But at least he's given himself the opportunity to say, this is what we want to do proactively with a goal. Otherwise, you get trampled over, okay? So I'm not saying you should go back to your businesses and say, wow, Bill, he is a hippo. You could go ahead and think that, just don't say it, all right? This is another one of those slides that's good to take back to your organization. So this is a little bit of a maturity model of how e-commerce typically looks inside businesses when you start out. Number one is kind of a siloed part of the business where one of you in this room is responsible for both the P&L and technology side of commerce. Feels isolated. Feels like you're working against the company. Feels like you're not working with anyone. As things move along though, as you build out an accountability framework and helping make decisions through others and with others, you'll notice that your e-commerce or digital team starts to spread itself pervasively throughout the organization, right? It becomes less of a department and more of intertwined inside your business. To the point where you get to model number 4, which if you get there, fantastic. It may take a while, but doing digital and commerce becomes business as usual for everyone in your organization. No longer does it become, oh, an order came through, the warehouse is upset because it's an e-commerce order and something's wrong. An order is an order, whether it was online or offline, okay? And that takes time to build, and that takes time to do through an accountability framework with people making decisions together and also through democratization of it. Does it make sense? You all have the distinct opportunity to have one of the most highly visible parts of your company at your hands. All right? Take what you will from that. A couple signs that you've got this figured out. A couple signs that you don't have it figured out. I'm not going to read them all. You know, I've seen and heard a lot of these throughout organizations, and it's one of those things where it doesn't show up on a regular day-to-day basis where you go, accountability framework, we got this all figured out. It's more of things like this that show up, that you have it figured out or that you don't. One way to assess yourself, there's a lot more questions than this. These are just examples. One way to assess yourself is by asking yourself these questions and then where you land on this kind of maturity model, so to speak, from initial to optimized. I don't want to give a 40-minute monologue here, but does anyone want to share where they feel they are at on this accounting framework and why it works for your business or why it doesn't? Aaron, no?
I mean, I think from my perspective and working in many industries, we're really close to number 4.
So Aaron said he's really close to number 4, all the way towards the optimized side, working with businesses and industries, right? Internally at your organization. And now externally to the clients you serve, is it the same story? Yeah. Yeah, Heister, yeah. Yeah, Audra, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Antara, they're probably in the number 4 category. I feel like we're in developing category.
What's holding you back, Audra?
Clear roles.
Clear roles, all right.
Need more empowerment.
And that's because maybe a small team, maybe wearing a lot of hats, maybe just doing business as usual things plus building new things. It's a time thing, right?
Ties back to that previous slide.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, common problem, by the way. Not everyone's going to be an optimized. This is very much, in a lot of ways, a bell curve. So it's okay if you're in those lower rungs. That's why we're all here to learn from each other, all right? And all of you have great knowledge learning from each other. The gentleman from Wagner yesterday made a very important point that this is a small community that has a lot of great thoughts and a lot of great learnings from each other. Capitalize on that, okay? These are none of you will probably bite each other, okay? Learn from each other. Things you can do in your organization, simple to put in words, much harder to do and put in action in your organizations. But here's just some ideas. I'm telling you that if you don't start some way down the path on the accountability framework, it will bite you in the butt later on. And you will probably try to be a hero, using too much of your time and taking on too much responsibility. I learned that at a large organization. If I didn't have blondish hair, it would be gray, okay? Before I move forward to block number 2, any questions on accountability framework? Understood? We got it? Okay. Number 2, operational backbone. These are things like your ERP. Audra, I'm gonna pick on you. You roasted your AS400 last year at Znode Grow. I remember. That's what we're talking about, okay? This is one of those scenarios that your operational backbone, your brains of your operation transactionally are very important. Your systems of record for your products, your orders, your customers, your inventory, your pricing, all of those things. It may be more than one system and that's okay, right? These are the things the business runs off of offline and how people do their work. This is what people call, quote unquote, the system in their jobs, okay? All of you probably have some leverage of operational backbone inside your organization, okay? This is absolutely required, if you haven't felt it yet, in order for digital commerce to work inside your non-digitally born company. Seems relatively obvious of why this is important in digital commerce. Maybe you wouldn't think so, but in a lot of ways, it allows that alignment to happen with data consistency between both the business that's working in AP, AR, supply chain, pricing, and those of you looking at the outside world in terms of customer experience, okay? It is the oil for growth, and despite how old your ERPs may be, you have to leverage them as much as possible. Because if you go rogue and start defining business logic on your own in e-commerce, you're gonna have a bad time eventually, all right? Here's an example of when this goes wrong. So this is a distributor that I'm actively working with right now on their second website that does drop shipping. This screenshot's not from Znode, by the way. This is from their current legacy platform. This is a bucket of washer screw heads that they call a keg. And they have a minimum order quantity of what? 5,000. 5,000 buckets, each with 5,000 screws in them. That doesn't seem right, does it? I asked them, how many people have ordered this? Guess how many? Zero. Wonder why, right? It's above my credit limit, I'll tell you that right now. And so this is an example of something, and I see this every day, you know, where we've connected a back office system, but the data isn't correct. Something you all probably learned is when you do systems integrations, connecting pipes and plumbing, it can show some dirty water. Bad, dirty data, right? Because I'm maybe a little masochistic and I was curious what it would take to get these delivered to me, if I did order them, this is what it looks like. And so it would take, and I conferred with a lot of resources on this. I spent way more time than I'm willing to admit figuring this out, okay? It would take that tractor trailer, 4 vehicles to ride with me across states, and then, you know, a state trooper, along with, you know, the inspection fees, the large load fees, all the bridges that we were gonna cross. I'm not sure what the shipping charge on this thing would be. And hopefully we don't have free shipping running, right? So a good example of how this stuff manifests, right? And it's jokes, but it's serious. Like this stuff happens every day, probably in your business, whether you know it or not, okay? It's not all perfect, all right? Again, signs you've got this figured out, signs you don't. Last year, Audra roasted her AS400. Does anyone want to talk about their operational backbone and why they love it or why they hate it right here, right now? Silence tells me enough. The last one I have on here, by the way, why are peanut butter, you know, why is that for sale on our website? We sell hydraulic hoses. How many people in your company can create products in the ERP? If your answer is more than they should, you're like everyone else in a lot of ways. And this happens because, you know, at distributors, for example, I've seen companies sell bottles of water, which is pretty typical to do, to just sell bottles of water for the folks that come into the branches and want, water or popcorn, things like that. But those get itemized in the ERP, connected to the e-commerce system, which are now sellable in e-commerce, right? Someone goes, why are we selling, cattle feed on our website when we're selling hydraulic hoses? I like finding these at companies. It's really fun. This, again, is a major part of your business. This is where you can assess where you're at on kind of the digital maturity model when it comes to the operational backbone, because it becomes a major spine to your business in terms of uplifting and showing the value proposition from an efficiency standpoint on your digital commerce experience. Does anyone want to share maybe where they're at with integrating their systems, whether it's pros, cons, et cetera, on this maturity model? Yeah, the Wagner folks, you had a good story yesterday about this, right?
Yeah, so we use Epicor ERP, and I'm just concurred with Paul, but I really believe we're in the compliant stage. We have a solid integration into Znode and other applications through Epicor, again, using the REST APIs and so forth. We do have some gaps in data governance.
Sure.
Who owns the cart master? Who owns the customer master when so many people have security rights to it? Especially being, that kind of mid-tier manufacturer, people wear many hats, they may need it. Obviously controls in place for finance, but definitely looking forward to be in that optimized stage at some point. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, digital commerce is one of those things. I always think about writing a short story in illustrative format about this, but it's one of those platforms and experiences that's almost like putting a transparent castle around your business. Meaning what it's doing is through e-commerce, you're showing a transparent lens into your business. And that may be good and it may be really bad. Especially if you have humans fixing things in the middle on the sales side and you're showing real-time inventory, real-time pricing, things like that. One of the situations that I talk about with organizations when they say, yep, we want real-time inventory showing up on our website. And I'll go, are you sure? How strong is your inventory positioning? If you have a lot of zeros and ones showing up for all your products, are customers going to be confident in kind of your capital structure, your assets, where you're positioned? Maybe we should do a in-stock, out-of-stock, a yes-no instead. Things like that. So we have to be careful about these integrations. And it's okay. I know the Wagner folks mentioned they're at Define now and looking to get optimized. But eventually you hit diminishing returns. Not everyone has to be fully on the optimized side, right? You hit a certain point in time when it comes to business value where you could spend thousands of hours getting something done for this much value. Maybe we should skip that kinds of stuff, right? You're looking for big impact stuff. If you get to the point of doing small impact stuff, you're probably doing something right, okay? Things you can do in your business, again, digital commerce is one of those things that gets exposed to every part of your business. Seriously, document your business processes. This is not sexy, trust me, but like the procure to pay, order to cash business processes, if they are not documented about who does what and when and where, take it on yourself to start that process because it will help you later on in digital commerce. Next step is obviously integrate something. Doesn't have to be big. Just one field, and it could be, the integration could be a file-based integration. You're sending daily files, gets uploaded to the website, just start there. It's okay. Just doing the basics is okay. And then you standardize, and then you improve. I think a lot of times organizations go through the path of trying to bite off more than they can chew. And what's the best way to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Very good, thank you. Block number 3, the blue one, is the digital platform. This is fun, this is exciting, this is why we're all here, Grow. Pretty basic, it allows you to do cool stuff. To a detrimental level, actually. So something I learned in software development pretty quickly is that just because we can build anything, which Znode allows, doesn't mean we always should, okay? So this is one of those situations where a lot of you have maybe re-platformed recently because you were hitting a ceiling with your platform. It couldn't do things, right? It was hitting like, we can't do this, we can't do this. It is empire of no. Very standardized product. Platforms like Znode allow you to do all those things plus anything else you'd really want to do. Now you have to make intentional decisions, right, about what to do and what not to do. No longer is it an excuse to say, no, we can't do that, platform won't allow it. Now it's more about we can, how long is it going to take? I don't even have an explanation on this slide. Seems rhetorical to me. That's why we're all here, all right? One of the nice things about Znode and other platforms in a lot of ways is it allows us to have one platform or ecosystem of platforms with multiple brands or business models. How many of you have multiple websites in your business? Yeah, you probably don't. Ideally, you don't want different platforms for every single website that you have. It's just a ton of overhead, tech debt, management, etc. Something like Znode allows us to have, in this case, dry cleaning supplies. Wawa can Cleaner Supply up there in the Northeast. They have a D2C brand and a B2B brand. Both using the same digital ecosystem though with different customer experiences. Very important. Number two, Rupesh mentioned this actually. Number two, it allows us to create offerings and experiences beyond a very basic transactional website. Rupesh mentioned there's a lot of platforms that can do that are much simpler to use. That is not the point of what we're trying to do here. We are trying to move beyond a transactional website and move into a value-added experience. Something I will advise all of you to do, if you haven't yet, is truly understand how your company makes money. It's very likely you're not just selling widgets. You're very likely doing some other things. Whether it's light manufacturing services, whether it's application engineering, whether it's project management, you're probably providing some type of value to your customers that we need to somehow expose online. And that's not through a marketing page. That's through an experience. So, a couple examples. Harvey Tool, building an experience to basically build your own car by drill bits. They build custom drill bits. They wanted an experience where customers could go and design their own drill bits, and then they would do it, versus calling a salesperson, talking about the specs, etc. Chef's Warehouse, that's another one of our businesses we work with, very large food distributor. They work with high-end chefs. Something that they do a ton is, $1.5 million online a day, transactionally. They love it, it works great. What's even better is building an experience where chefs can upload a picture of their menu of their restaurant and say, give me all the ingredients to buy from Chef's Warehouse, using AI to populate that quick order pad. You wouldn't believe how many ingredients are in certain recipes at high-end restaurants. It's absurd. And I know way more about crab meat than I care to at this juncture. Secondarily, we think about the digital platform as an external customer experience. You know what works really well in B2B is building internal user experiences. One of my goals when I was at Crescent was to build an e-commerce and digital platform where the sales side, outside sales, inside sales, quotations, etc., never had to use the ERP ever again. That was a goal of mine, right? Because what we were trying to do is build a front-end experience using the same place customers use to buy things to basically showcase all the ERP data from their phone, for example. And you wouldn't believe the praise, and by the way, this works really well with adoption. Salespeople no longer had to get out their laptop in the parking lot of the customer, get on the VPN, log into Epic or Eclipse, look up something slow, yada, yada. They just whipped out their phone, looked up the customer's order history and things that they could buy in terms of open bids, and walked into that customer very informed, okay? And also looked at order history, things like that. So just as much as an external experience is about this, think about building tools and capabilities for your internal employees, okay? Just as big of a deal, in my opinion. Signs, got this figured out. Signs, you don't. The last one on the left is important. Customers giving you praise on your digital capabilities. Sounds simple, but trust me, when you hear a positive thing from a customer, it carries you so far, okay? When I was working as an IT leader, no one really ever said, good job, Jacobi, you kept those servers running. They would tell me when they weren't. I'll tell you that right now. Same thing applies to digital commerce. When you hear praise, good things are happening. When you don't hear anything, you're probably doing all right. When you hear bad things, room to improve. Okay? Kind of the status quo here. This is not a sales pitch for Znode, but thinking about your digital platform, how easily can you offer new things on your website when that comes to experiences? Again, this is really important. How does your company make money? What do you do as an organization besides either making things or selling things? I guarantee other parts of your business are providing some type of value to your customers. How can we expose that digitally through our website? Not just through a marketing page, through an experience, okay? Very, very important. All the tools allow us to do that at this juncture. The first bullet's a joke. Implement and utilize Znode. Seems obvious. But again, that second one now, understanding your value proposition. A question I like to ask organizations, feel free to ask this in your company, is if our company was to go away tomorrow, blasted off the face of the earth, how quickly could a competitor come in and do what we do? And if the answer, as people think about it, because it seems like a threatening question, if the answer is our competitors could do what we do tomorrow, we really need to evaluate what our unique value proposition is as a company then, right? But when I hear, well, Jacobi, our competitors, it would take 6 months to do what we do. What are those things then? Because I want to expose those online as much as possible. Those things that make you unique as a company, okay? Again, it's not just selling widgets at Crescent, pipe, wire, and conduit. There's a lot of companies that sell pipe, wire, and conduit, okay? And when you're selling like that, guess what? It's a race to the bottom in terms of price. Showcase your unique value proposition as a company. Improve UX is always a thing. Introduce self-service features. One of the things that you've seen maybe applicable to your organization is there seems to be some type of driver towards a revenue goal. I try not to focus too much on revenue, especially in B2B when it comes to online. I look at utilization. Something I learned throughout a lot of companies is that customers will use the website as much as possible and still call Bill, their inside salesperson, no matter what. And that's a behavior change, and that's okay. But what the website did was it attributed to the sale with Bill, though, okay? So something you can look at from a self-service perspective is that it may not give you direct revenue recognition, but it will provide attribution to your business when you look at utilization, okay? Take credit for that. Take credit for that. How these things all fit together? It's a triangle, so to speak. Without one of them, something else fails. If we don't have a digital platform, why are we all here? Is the first comments I would make. If we don't have an operational backbone, how is our business deciding what to price things at, where our inventory is at, is it in sticky notes, etc. If we don't have an accountability framework or some semblance of them, how are we making decisions? If we don't have that, we're probably just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping for the best. And hope's not a good strategy. You all know that. From an integration standpoint, the front of the house digital platform stuff that the world gets to see is connected to the operational backbones through whatever means necessary, files, APIs, XML documents, sticks and stones, whatever, okay? And then along with that are all the decisions from an accountability framework. How this manifests itself from a technical side looks like this. This is a company, large food distributor. On the right-hand side, they have a single digital experience with 9 different websites using one kind of platform for all those different experiences. In the middle is a massive integration layer to handle certain business logic. Why? Because they have 9 ERPs. Okay? This is a heavy M&A acquisition company. They're global, all right? So they have 9 unique ERPs, all with their own products. There's obviously overlap between some of them, but they move so quickly that they will not consolidate to their core ERP, which is JDE. You know, it has certain problems. Number 2 is because they want to stay deconsolidated, we have to pay for that tax somewhere, right? This company pays for that tax in this integration layer to handle the business logic so that a customer, no matter if they hit all 9 ERPs, gets one single experience, okay? And by the way, this is an organization that they're public, they make billions. Their ERP, their main ERP is down more than you wouldn't believe. And that's a problem, okay? So when you have things connected so tightly where you're getting real-time pricing, inventory, et cetera, and that ERP goes down, what happens? Your customers don't see that data, and you're kind of showing your dirty laundry. You don't want customers to experience that, okay? So this organization went with the risk mitigation path of building caching in the middle layer so that when things go downhill inside the businesses, customers never even know, okay? There's too much at stake, especially with a public company. This is complex, but their business is complex. This is how it manifests between those triangles. The other part that I want to mention is how decisions are made. If you are a single person responsible for both the operational backbone, we'll call it back of the house, and the front of the house on the digital platform, it gets very difficult because your success metrics are kind of conflicting with each other. Back of the house really prides itself on being a cost center kind of methodology, right? Cost savings, efficiencies, risk mitigation, stability are success metrics there. But the front of the house on the digital platform side, it's more about revenue, customer experience, not a cost center, it's a profit center. If you are a single person responsible for both, it's a very conflicting mind to have, okay? Because you're trying to live in both sides at once. Does anyone have responsibility for both the whole spectrum here? Just one, probably, right? Just one. There's a reason for that, okay? This is something I would advise. If you're responsible for kind of the whole spectrum, try to have maybe a second in command or a lieutenant help with the other side of the house for you, whichever one you want to lay on, okay? These building blocks, they take time. So this is Schneider's multi-year building block effort and how it looked. Each building block represents, we'll call it resources, time, budget, etc., technology, and how they built things. You can tell for quite a few years they spent their time with consolidating and figuring out 12 ERPs and one global CRM. Took a long time to do that. In 4 years, a lot of effort, right? And they built up doing some, infrastructure things on the digital side in the blue. The whole time, we didn't talk about these 2 other building blocks. The gray one is shared customer insights. The gold or yellow one is external developer platform. They spent a long time doing those things. But just know that you're not just going to solve this in a year or 6 months. It took a long time to get to where your company's at. It's going to take a little bit to get out. The Wagner folks mentioned yesterday, you feel like you're at a point now where you're hitting that almost like flywheel effect of like, now we can really make an impact. But it took a while to get out of that trench, right? It took a little bit to get out of that trench and start building some cool stuff, right? You really had to roll up the sleeves there. The company I was formerly at Crescent, this is what ours looked like. So I came in at about late 2016. The decision was made to move from the mainframe, which was, and Crescent's a 105-year-old company, by the way. The mainframe was engineered for over 35 years. with over 500 individual programs built within it. Literally, snowflakes were built uniquely everywhere, okay? And something that I came into was the decision was already made to move to Epic or Eclipse. The decision was made for me, one of those things, okay? That was project number one. Project number two was replacing every computer in the company in 9 months. So we did some very, very basic things to build for the future, okay? And it took a lot of work, took a lot of effort, multiple years to do. At the same time, if you look in the news, Crescent acquired a company in mid-2016 called Home Products Etc., HPE. They bought a company for their digital commerce platform. When you're a big company, you just buy stuff, okay? That's how that works. Would not recommend it. So Crescent bought a very unique e-commerce platform through an acquisition. That worked for roughly 9 months. I then went scorched earth and rebuilt everything from scratch. System selection, rebuilt the whole platform. CMS, search, PIM, and e-commerce, pretty much all at once. That took a long time and a lot of money, but it was to build for the future. In the green is really important. Selfishly, one of the smartest things I think I did during this time is because I was responsible for the operational backbone, I hired a VP of e-commerce. Guess what he was responsible for? Front of the house. My job then was to make sure the site was up and running, was stable, was secure, and it was scalable. Ted was his name, was responsible for the adoption and growth. Effectively, like many of you, I was responsible for building Rome. Ted was responsible for getting people to live there, okay? Very important difference. Being responsible for both is a lot to ask of any individual one person, okay? Couple things you can do, getting out of this spiral. Assess your current situation, pretty basic. Build cross-functional coalitions. People ask me all the time, Jacobi, who should be responsible for digital commerce in the business? CIO, CTO, CEO, CSO. My answer is typically the one who can build the most business partnerships across the organization, because that will generally work the best, regardless of title. That's just how digital commerce works. What you'll discover, as we're wrapping up here, what you'll discover as you evaluate these building blocks and build for your future is that you moved from a project mode, thinking the game's not even started yet, we've completed the project, to more of a product mode. If any of you have moved towards more of a product methodology in your business, it's probably the right move in a lot of ways. I know it's difficult to do, but you'll be thinking about more long-term success and what value looks like versus just completing projects to check a box, okay? Very, very important distinction to make here. And in fact, as you do this with the technology and the people and the processes, you're going to find as manufacturers and distributors, you're almost acting like software companies, okay? There's a risk to that. On the product side, Rupesh is the Chief Product Officer. One of the biggest decisions is what to build and what not to build. All of you with the right technology will also have that same dilemma. What not to build and what to build. It's very easy, Rupesh and team know, to just become a feature factory with no intention and just throwing stuff out there because you can. So you get the opportunity to build things intentionally because you can. Also comes with risks though, right? But it's very freeing to be able to know that you can build anything. To wrap up in a lot of ways here, this is a journey. This is not a 6-month, 3-month, 12-month thing that you just do and you're done and you wipe your hands and suddenly your company's making millions of dollars online. It's not how it works. That's where the whole circular logic thing comes in about panicking. Why isn't it doing the thing, right? You constantly have to have a perpetual motion here, constant alignment of teams, and growing both with your customers and internally inside your business. It's literally a marathon. If that's not what you signed up for, news for you, okay? But this is how it works, all right? There's a lot of fun involved, there's a lot of pride involved, and this is a highly visible part of your business. And number one, it helps your company as an organization. Number two, for your own professional development, right? These things are very impactful to your organization. Okay, that's it, everyone. That's for today, the building blocks of building for digital growth.